Some mornings begin not with clarity, but with a kind of blur. The alarm is rung, the kettle is humming in the kitchen, and your phone glows with reminders waiting to be answered. You slip on your shoes, you grab your bag, and your hand brushes the keys on the table. All the while, the mirror stands by the door, quietly offering itself, as it always does. You see a glimpse of yourself in passing. A cheek, the outline of an eye, the faintest flash of your expression. And you keep walking. No time to stop. The day already feels late before it has even begun. It's not that you don't care about yourself, it's that the world feels louder. Meetings stacked on the calendar, deadlines that don't wait, errands to finish, people to answer, children or parents who need something from you before you've even taken your first sip of coffee. And so the mirror becomes background. Like a painting you stopped noticing long ago, though it hangs in the same place every single day. But sometimes, when you move too quickly, there's a tug inside you. Not loud, not demanding, just a small ache, like a child tugging at your sleeve, wanting to be noticed. It says, look, just once, look. Tolstoy's words echo in that tug. Everyone thinks of changing the world. Maybe that's why you keep walking past yourself, because changing yourself feels heavier than answering another email. It feels harder than solving someone else's problem, and so you stay in motion, outward, forward, upward, anywhere but inward. But here's the quiet truth you rarely say out loud. Success, without yourself in it, feels strangely hollow. You can tick the boxes, climb the ladder, even collect the praise. And yet when you fall into bed at night, staring at the ceiling in the dark, you feel a gap between the life you're showing and the life you're living. That gap is not failure. It's absence. And absence has a way of exhausting the spirit. The mirror knows. It doesn't judge, doesn't measure, doesn't grade. It simply reflects. And that reflection, however ordinary, holds a question you can't rush past forever. Are you still here with yourself, or only with your performance? Plain truth is how we come home to ourselves. You don't need to give a speech to the mirror. You don't need to fix everything in a single glance. You only need to pause long enough to acknowledge that you are here, that you exist. Not as a resume or a role, but as a human being with tired eyes, with a story still unfolding, with worth that doesn't have to be proven. The room is ordinary. The smell of coffee, the stripe of sunlight sneaking past the blinds, the faint hum of the street outside. Yet in the middle of all this ordinariness, a small decision waits. Will you keep rushing forward without yourself, or will you take one breath, one moment, one pause to meet your own eyes? When you do, the mirror becomes more than glass. It becomes a companion. It says, good morning, you matter. Even before the emails, even before the meetings, even before you've earned a thing, you matter. And perhaps that is where change truly begins. Not with changing the world. Not with conquering the noise, but with the small human act of looking in the mirror and staying, if only for a breath. So before the day carries you away, let this question follow you out the door, soft and steady. What would today feel like if I didn't leave myself behind? The mirror, waiting by the door, has a way of remembering what the world forgets. It remembers the truth you often keep quiet, that outward success doesn't always mean inner peace. On paper, things look good. You've climbed steps others still dream about. The paycheck comes in. The title sounds respectable. The photos you post receive their share of hearts and thumbs. From the outside, it all fits the script of a life moving forward. And yet, late at night, when the phone stops buzzing and the house falls still, a question echoes inside. Why does it all feel so thin? You can dress success in bright colors, but if your reflection feels missing, the brightness fades quickly. That is the hidden contradiction. Applause from others while silence grows inside. There are nights when the weight of the silence feels heavier than the day's noise. You lie awake staring into the dark and feel an emptiness you can't name to anyone. You wonder why you keep feeling like you're performing a role that no longer fits, like you've been applauded for showing up while you, the person behind the role, remain unseen. What's the point of applause if you can't look yourself in the eye? The mirror holds the cost of pretending. It doesn't accuse, but it doesn't flatter either. Its honesty is quiet, unchanging. It shows the tiredness around your eyes, the tension in your jaw, the way your smile sometimes flickers only for the camera, and yet you carry on. Because stopping feels dangerous. If you stop, you might have to face the truth you've been dodging, that you've built a life that looks whole but feels incomplete, that you've succeeded at everything except including yourself. It's not failure that exhausts you, it's this double life. One part of you praised, another part of you abandoned. Sometimes the signs surface in small, almost invisible ways. A marriage that feels like polite silence instead of laughter. A child's question that goes unanswered because you're too weary to meet their eyes. A conversation where you smile on cue but feel disconnected, as though you're floating above yourself, watching a version of you play along. But these cracks don't announce themselves with fireworks. They appear in subtle moments. The sigh you didn't mean to let out, the glance away when someone asks, "Are you really okay?" They appear when you scroll through photos, smiling faces captured in perfect light, and feel only the dull ache of knowing that smile wasn't real, and so you keep moving. The world rewards movement, promotions, deadlines, endless to-do lists. They cover the ache like a blanket too thin to warm you, but underneath, the cold still reaches. It takes courage to admit this. Courage to say, "I am tired of living without myself." Tolstoy once wrote about how we look outward, eager to reform nations, systems, whole worlds, while neglecting the quiet reform that begins in our own hearts. Maybe that is why the mirror feels so heavy. It asks for a revolution that begins not with noise, but with honesty. And here is the paradox. You don't need to fix everything. You don't need to leap into a new life overnight. You only need to tell yourself the truth. Not for others to hear, not for likes or applause, but for you. Because plain truth is the beginning of coming home. If you've ever wondered why joy feels far, even in seasons of success, this is why. Recognition without presence isn't joy. It's self-abandonment. The mirror waits to be more than a decoration. It waits to be a witness, and maybe tonight, when the world grows quiet again, you will pause before it. You will see the lines, the weariness, but also the resilience in your own face. And you'll whisper something you haven't said in a while. "I see you." Because when you can see yourself without flinching, the silence at night begins to soften. It no longer presses in as absence. It opens as space. A space where you can begin again. Maybe that's why the silence at night feels heavier than the noise of the day. Morning arrives again, much like the others. The kettle hums, the street stirs, the phone blinks awake with new requests. You move quickly. Keys on the table, bag on the chair, shoes slipped on while your thoughts are already racing ahead to the day's demands. And then, without planning it, you glance at the mirror by the door. Something makes you stop, just for a breath. The face staring back feels older than you expected. The eyes are not just tired, they look almost unfamiliar, like the eyes of someone who's been running too long without rest. Your mouth is set in a line that doesn't belong to laughter, but to effort. You tilt your head slightly, searching for yourself in the reflection, and for the first time in a while, you cannot immediately find what you're looking for. It is a startling moment. Not loud, not dramatic, but sharp in its honesty. It's as though the mirror whispers, "If you keep this up, I will forget you completely. If I keep this up, the mirror will forget me." That thought shakes something inside you. You suddenly feel the weight of all the mornings you rush past this very spot, never pausing to notice. The weight of all the nights you collapsed into bed, praised by others, but estranged from yourself. The reflection is not accusing, but it is undeniably true. For a second you want to look away, to reach for the doorknob, to escape the quiet confrontation, but your body lingers as if it knows this moment matters. And deep down you realize that if nothing changes, the cost will not be measured in missed tasks or lost opportunities. The cost will be you. That's the hidden price of busyness. It slowly erases your own presence from your life. Success without yourself is not really success. It is self-erasure dressed in accomplishments. The crack is not a collapse. It's a revelation. It shows you what you've been unwilling to admit, that pretending is easier than honesty, but emptier too. You think of the times you smiled for others while feeling numb inside, the moments you laughed at jokes that didn't reach you, the late night scrolling, searching for something to fill the silence only to find it louder. You realize that if you continue this way, one day the mirror won't feel like it's reflecting you at all. It will simply show a role you've perfected, efficient, accomplished, praised, while the real you grows faint, like an echo in an abandoned room. The mirror creaks slightly as you shift your weight. That small sound feels like punctuation, as though the universe is underlining the sentence, enough hiding, enough rushing past yourself. In that pause, you let out a sigh, longer, deeper than you intended. It feels almost like confession, the kind of sigh that says, I cannot keep living without myself. You place your hand against the doorframe for steadiness. You notice details you usually ignore. The coolness of the knob beneath your palm, the way light from the window touches one side of your face, the faint hum of the city waiting. These ordinary details suddenly feel alive, as though the world has been waiting for you to notice, just as you have been waiting to notice yourself. The reflection is still tired, still marked by the wear and tear of long days. But now, looking at it, you see not just fatigue, but the outline of resilience. The evidence that you've carried yourself through so much already. And maybe, just maybe, you deserve more than survival. You deserve presence. The realization is simple but weighty. If you don't begin to change, you risk losing not just joy, but the thread of who you are. And so you whisper something softly, almost to test if it sounds true. I don't want to disappear. It's not a resolution or a polished vow, it's a plea. But in that plea lies a beginning. Because admitting the fear is the first step toward choosing differently. The mirror doesn't smile back. It doesn't need to. It simply holds your truth until you are ready to hold it yourself. This is the crack. The soul-level moment where you see that success without yourself is not just empty, it is dangerous. And as you finally open the door, carrying that realization with you, the question follows like a shadow turned into light. What would it take to keep myself present today? Morning edges into day. The streets hum with motion. The calendar fills its hours, and yet inside you, a pause lingers. The mirror's whisper has cracked the routine, and now you walk with a quiet awareness you can't easily shake. Tolstoy once wrote that it is easier to change the world than to change ourselves. At first glance, that line feels almost humorous. After all, changing the world is impossible most days, and yet maybe that's why it feels safer. Rally for causes, chase projects, argue policies, take on more responsibilities. All of that lets you stay in motion. All of it distracts from the harder revolution, the one waiting in your own reflection. The plain truth begins not with speeches, but with the mirror. Tolstoy's life carried this tension too. He was praised for epics that shaped literature, yet he wrestled endlessly with the question of how to live honestly, how to strip away illusion and meet life with plain truth. His reminder cuts gently. Before we try to reform the world, we we must dare to reform ourselves. That doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean becoming flawless. It means courage, the courage to stand in the presence of your own unpolished truth and not turn away. What if that kind of courage is the most practical kind? Not the courage of headlines, but of mornings. Not the courage of crowds, but of solitude. Imagine standing in front of the mirror each day and saying, "This is what I feel. This is where I hurt. This is where I hope." Imagine letting those words be enough without dressing them up for applause. The kettle clicks in the kitchen. The sound is soft but grounding. You pour hot water over tea leaves, and steam rises like a gentle sermon on impermanence. Even the steam tells the truth. It doesn't hide what it is. It simply rises, visible for a moment, then gone. No pretenses, no performance. And maybe that is what Tolstoy was pointing toward, the freedom of being plain, unembellished, honest in a world obsessed with performance. You sit for a moment with the cup in your hands. Warmth presses into your palms. You think of how long it has been since you've let yourself be still, without a screen, without a plan, without rehearsing who you need to be next. The stillness feels risky, almost indulgent, yet within it, you sense possibility. Tolstoy's lens reframes the mirror. It's no longer just a piece of glass you rush past. It becomes a doorway, and standing before it is not about vanity or self-criticism. It is about honesty. Honesty that liberates, because it clears away the clutter of pretending. Courage isn't conquering crowds. It's telling yourself the truth first. This realization doesn't remove the struggles. The deadlines still exist, the bills don't vanish, the relationships still require effort and care, but it gives you a new foundation. Instead of layering your days with masks, you begin to imagine what it would mean to carry your truth lightly into each moment, to walk into a meeting without the weight of pretending, to sit at dinner and answer, "How are you?" with something real, even if small. The page of a notebook lies open on the counter. You pick up a pen, not to draft a plan or craft a performance, but simply to write one sentence. "Today I am weary, but I am here." The ink glides onto paper, leaving behind more than words. It leaves evidence of honesty, a mark that you didn't abandon yourself in this moment. Tolstoy's reminder hums through the act. Reform doesn't begin with sweeping gestures. It begins with one honest sentence, one brave glance in the mirror, one pause where you let yourself be present without the armor. The kettle cools, the steam fades, the cup warms your hands. And you realize this: telling yourself the truth doesn't make life heavier, it makes it bearable. Because the burden of pretense is far heavier than the weight of honesty. Cliffhanger. If truth is the doorway, are you willing to open it? The truth has a way of asking not for grand gestures, but for small ones. After the mirror's whisper, after Tolstoy's reminder, the question becomes simple: what now? How do you take this awareness, fragile as it feels, and place it into the fabric of an ordinary day? The answer is not in sweeping changes. It's in quiet practices, tiny, almost invisible steps that restore your presence to yourself. They are not revolutions others will notice. They are acts of belonging you offer to your own heart. One unpolished truth frees more energy than 1,000 polished masks. Try this. Stand in front of the mirror for one full minute. No phones, no rush, no performance, just you and your reflection. Whisper how you truly feel, even if it sounds clumsy. "I'm tired. I'm anxious. I'm hopeful." Whatever rises. The words don't need to be profound. They need only to be true. That minute may feel awkward at first, but awkwardness is a sign of honesty breaking through habit. Another small step: open a notebook, any page, and write one sentence that carries your truth. Not a whole journal entry, not a polished reflection, just one line. "Today I felt lonely. Today I laughed at something small. Today I wanted to quit." Over time, Those single sentences weave a quiet tapestry of honesty. They prove you are not invisible to yourself. And then, when someone asks, "How are you?" try answering with one real thing, even if it's just, "It's been a long week, but I'm hanging in." Or, "I'm tired, but grateful." You don't need to pour out every detail. You only need to let your answer belong to you, not to expectation. Each of these actions is small enough to fit into the pocket of your day, but together, they build a different rhythm. They shift the balance from performance to presence. Think of how much energy you spend polishing masks, curating words, arranging smiles, maintaining appearances. That energy can be freed, bit by bit, when you tell the plain truth instead. Honesty doesn't drain you, pretense does. The mirror, once ignored, becomes your companion in this practice. Each glance is an invitation. Will you show up for yourself today? Not in a dramatic way, but in the simplest way possible, by being honest. The pen scratching across paper becomes another symbol. The act is physical, grounded. It turns inner noise into visible ink, and every time you see those words later, you'll remember. You did not abandon yourself, and the conversations, however small, begin to change too. When you answer more truthfully, you create space for others to do the same. Honesty is contagious. A friend may feel relieved when your realness gives them permission to drop their mask. A colleague may sigh with recognition when you say you're struggling too. These are not world-changing acts, and yet in their quiet way, they are revolutionary. Because they shift the weight of your life back toward presence. They remind you that success is not measured in applause, but in integrity, the alignment between your inner life and your outer words. Transformation rarely begins with lightning. It begins with one honest breath. There will still be days you rush past the mirror, nights when you forget to write a line, moments when you slip into rehearsed answers. That's human. But each time you return to these small practices, you strengthen the thread of connection to yourself. Over time, that thread becomes strong enough to hold you steady when the world feels heavy. So here is your invitation for today. Choose one pocket action. Just one. Pause at the mirror. Write a sentence. Answer honestly. Begin there. Because every time you choose truth, even in its smallest form, you reclaim a piece of yourself. And piece by piece, you rebuild a life where success is no longer hollow, because it includes you. Evening has its own language. The house exhales as the day slows down. Outside, the street carries a softer hum, and the light turns golden, brushing the walls with calm. You set your bag down by the chair, kick off your shoes, and let the silence spread. And there, by the door, the mirror waits again. This time you do not rush past. You pause. The reflection looking back is not flawless. The eyes still carry the marks of fatigue. The mouth still hints at the weight of a long day. But there is something new, something subtle that you hadn't seen before. A steadiness, a presence. It's as if after all the rushing pomp, you have finally brought yourself home. The mirror is no longer skipped. It has become an ally. You think of all the mornings when the mirror accused you with its silence, when its truth felt unbearable. But tonight it feels different. Not kinder, not softer. The mirror hasn't changed. What's changed is the way you stand before it. For once, you do not avert your eyes. For once, you let yourself belong in your own reflection. There's no grand applause, no fireworks, only the quiet dignity of presence. And maybe this is what Tolstoy meant in his own restless search for plain truth, that the greatest revolutions are not loud but steady, not public but deeply personal. You take a slow breath, and in that breath you realize something. The person in the mirror is not a stranger, they are you. They have carried every burden, every long night, every hollow smile, and they are still here, waiting for you to notice, to acknowledge, to stay. What you feel isn't pride in the way the world usually defines it. It isn't about accomplishments or appearances, it is relief. Relief that you can stand here, imperfect, unfinished, and still worthy of your own gaze. Success without yourself is hollow. Truth returns you to your life. The mirror doesn't erase the noise of the world. Tomorrow will still bring its deadlines, its responsibilities, its uninvited pressures, but tonight you carry something different. A thread of honesty, a rhythm of presence, a reminder that you don't have to leave yourself behind at the door, and that reminder will change the way tomorrow feels. Not because the world will grow easier, but because you will grow steadier. You will walk into the day with yourself intact. You let your hand rest on the doorframe the same way it did this morning. But now, instead of rushing outward, you pause inward. You whisper quietly, "Thank you for staying." It may sound small, almost silly. But gratitude has a way of softening even the hardest edges. Gratitude for the reflection that stayed loyal, even when you ignored it. Gratitude for the chance to begin again, not with the world, but with yourself. Outside, crickets sing their nightly hymn. The air feels cooler, carrying the scent of evening rain. You stand there, listening, letting the moment stretch without hurry. You realize that the mirror will greet you tomorrow, too. And when it does, you'll have a choice, to rush past or to meet yourself again. Will tomorrow's mirror show the same mask or the person you are becoming? That question lingers, gentle but steady. Like a lantern carried into the dark, it is not a demand, it is an invitation. You step back, ready to turn out the lights, ready to end the day. And as you do, the mirror holds your image one last time, not as an enemy, not as a stranger, but as a witness. A witness to the truth that success without yourself is not success at all. It's simple. You are here. You are enough. And tomorrow, when the morning rush begins again, you will know that you don't have to leave yourself behind. You can carry this presence forward, one glance, one breath, one honest step at a time. And that, perhaps, is the plain truth Tolstoy was pointing toward. That life does not ask us to be perfect, only present, to look in the mirror and to stay.